Hey, DM Dongo here with another review from the DM's Guild. This time we're going to be looking at Weekend at Strahd's by Anthony Joyce and Oliver Clegg, currently on sale for $5.95. So break out those big shoulder pads and Hawaiian shirts and get ready to jump back into the 80s. Right, so what is Weekend at Strahd's? Weekend at Strahd's is in its core a one-shot adventure for players of 5 to 10. It emphasizes casual play and has a heavy reliance on music. One player, will take on the role of Strahd von Zarovich's corpse, which is still animated through some magical means that the players will become available. There are two main mechanics that I need to be aware of going into it. First is New Coke. Players bring some kind of drink, pour all that into a punch bowl, and any player or DM who drinks from it in each set piece kind of like location, major like that kind of area, they can gain advantage on a roll, +3 to one roll, or -3 to a roll of their choice. Now, my players, if they brought all of this stuff to a punch bowl, brought it in, I don't think I'd survive, especially if they knew it was coming. So I think I'll avoid New Coke. I avoided it the first time around. Let's keep it that way. The other thing I need to mention is death. Death is expected and very common in this adventure, but if a character dies, they just reappear back at the start of their next turn at half their maximum hit points. So it's not a big deal, but it is something to be aware of. It also even says that it has, if you die the most, you get a little prize, a Frankenstein Ronald Reagan for your troubles. Now, there are also a bunch of random encounters in this, and they are as follows. Ricky Roll, the Loonies, the Thrilling Zombies, and the Ghost Hunters. And they kind of occur at different points within the adventure. But essentially, the goal of the players is to locate the 5 pieces of the Pentaforce scattered throughout Castle Ravenloft. So somewhere within there are these 5 things that you need to destroy Strahd von Zarovich's corpse once and for all, stop the power of love, and prevent the end credits from appearing and destroying the world. And that's basically the premise of the entire adventure. The whole thing is a big old 80s love letter. Essentially, every single section or adventure, or not adventure, set piece is some reference to 80s pop culture or 80s movies or 80s like music. Everything in here is kind of very, very 80s themes. And that's really the big heart of it here. It's a very fun very fun, different thing that I think not a lot of D&D adventures do, but Oliver is very well known for. These kind of like very tongue-in-cheek adventures, they are very good, and this is one of those classic ones. And there are a couple of different sections I've really liked, probably because I remember the movies they come from. And they make me laugh. So my 2 favorite sections of this, the ones I'm going to pick out to kind of give you an idea of what's in them, are the dining hall first and the chapel. Now, I know they're right next to each other in the book, and I know that seems like a cop-out, but they genuinely are my favorite. The first is the chapel, where you find Donovich. If you know the main Strahd adventure, you know who this is. And Donovich is kind of quite a tragic character. His son has been killed and everything else. However, he is now serving a new saint. Saint Elmo, the red furry, high-pitched, giggling thing. And I remember the toy that came out for this, the Tickle Me Elmo. My God, was that toy annoying. And I think a dungeon master who can hit those high notes and manage to get the Elmo voice just perfect is seriously going to annoy and frustrate your players and probably get them to laugh and giggle really well. Now, the other one that I like is the dining hall. Now, this one has key references to another one of my favorite movies from back in the 80s, Beetlejuice. Now, this whole thing is centered around Dmitry Kresnikov and his wife Anna and their dead son Ilya. If you know the adventure, you know those 3. You know they're very tragic their history. But now Ilias decided he's going to control his parents, and every so often he just gets them to sing the Banana Boat song. If you know, it's the one that goes Day-o. Anyways, that's enough singing out of me. But they kind of the whole premise of that little section is to get them to kind of talk about find a certain object with a thing. No spoilers here, but it is very funny, and this is how these kind of things work. There's a key way of doing it. It's usually an 80s reference or something about the movie or thing in question that kind of triggers it and makes it so that it's possible for you to succeed. And if you know those references or can figure them out, you will have a great fun time. And that's kind of the whole adventure in a nutshell, is how they kind of work out. But that's not to say that combat or exploration or any of the main D&D pillars are just left at the wayside. They still are very present. Players can still kill and fight their way through certain sections, but it's more balanced than that. A lot of things are more social or lean heavily on the exploration pillar. They kind of fit in those, they fly more towards the silly and the weird than the more like classic mundane. But I think that's okay. I think that's okay as like a palate cleanse kind of adventure. Now, what did I like about this adventure? A lot of it. I really love the tongue-in-cheek humor. I love the 80s references, but I'm an 80s child, so I think that might be part of it. I really love this adventure as an idea, as a palate cleanse after playing Curse of Strahd. Curse of Strahd is very dark, very brooding, very oppressive, very somber moods that are kind of thrown at the players constantly, and even their victory at the end doesn't really feel like a good one in some cases. With this kind of says, right, you just ran a really depressing adventure for probably the upwards of 3 or 4 months, depending on how your kind of like players are going and how quickly they're going through. Let's cleanse that. Let's get that out of your system. Let's play something fun. Let's play something interesting. Let's have a party. And that's kind of another thing I like about it. It doesn't take itself seriously. This is, let's have some fun. Let's just do something a little silly for a bit. And I love that about this adventure. I also really like that they've gone to the effort to say, here are the pillars of adventure. Here's how you can pass this encounter via combat, exploration, social. I think every adventure should have that like sidebar to say, here's how a player can deal with the combat way. Here's how they could potentially deal with it with exploration. Here's how they could deal with it with social encounters. Like those 3 pillars of D&D are really hard for some DMs, I think, to kind of manifest in every way, because every player is different and every player wants to kind of engage with the adventure in a different way, and spelling them out and saying, here's how they can solve this adventure in this way, gives a very good way for dungeon masters to go, oh, okay, now I understand kind of what you mean by that, and it gives them some good training wheels, as it were. The other thing I really liked is that there is such a good tie to music in this. There's such a strong kind of, here's the music play here, here's the music to play this, here's the music play this. Yes, it's very tongue-in-cheek. Yes, it's very like, here's a whole bunch of 80s music that I can kind of like drop onto you, and here's this kind of, those kinds of things. But I think doing those kinds of things and maybe thinking about them as a DM or as a player, or maybe even just thinking about this as an adventure designer, is something I'd love to see in more adventures. Thinking about music and mood and atmosphere. And this one sets that very well. This is a really well done adventure and a really well done setup from that perspective as well. Now, on to what I didn't like. And I don't think I can put anything here. There are no maps for this, but there's a lot of lovely art for it. It's very theater of the mind, and I think that might turn some players and DMs off. But I think the way it's run, and I think this is kind of like, this is a true one-shot. You run this in one night and you're done. You never look back on it. And I think players will remember it fondly for that. It is very well done for what it is. And I think that's the thing that I would tell any prospective person looking to purchase this. It is what it is. It wears it on its sleeve. It isn't meant to be taken seriously. It is a casual play thing. There aren't maps. but you will have a good experience. Unless your players just want to keep playing grim dark things and keep playing things like Curse of Strahd, or they just want to have that experience. But as a DM and a player, you kind of know your group well enough to say, yeah, they'll have fun with this. Now, if your players are a little on the young side and they don't remember the 80s or don't get those references, they might struggle with some of those things. But they might still have fun if you can kind of explain to them or just give them or set the tone properly. So it kind of is, my one gripe is, I think you need to know your players and your group really well to play this and run this effectively. But that's not a criticism of the module. That's just kind of here's a good DM tip. Know your group. Now, on to my final thoughts and my rating. So it'll come as no surprise that I really love this module. I really love what it has to offer and the kinds of things it does that are very, very good. Things that I think should exist in other modules as well. Things like mentioning music, things like advising on what things to play, things like picking like the sidebar to telling what the pillars of adventure are and how the players can navigate through their various areas. I really love those things. I also love the theming behind it, and the art is really spot on 80s. As a child of the 80s, I remember most of these things and going, yeah, and some of them I regret. Some of them haven't aged as well as they should have. I can remember watching things like the Goonies and the Ghostbusters and being really like entranced by it, but oh boy, some of those films don't age well. Oh boy. Yeah, I think as long as you were taking this in the tone as it's intended, and you're not trying to make this more serious than it is, I think it's worth every penny that you pay for it. I think it's a 5 out of 5 adventure. I don't think it needs the maps. I don't think it needs battle maps at all. I think you could run this online with pure theater of the mind, using the art that's contained within to kind of just punctuate various things. You might even want to just put like a weird like filtered version of the Castle Ravenloft popped on the board, like a nice I don't know, just like a big like surface map of here's where all the locations you can go in, and here's kind of broadly what they look at, and put like images of the Breakfast Club in one, and put the Goonies in another, and that kind of stuff. And I think that would be enough, and I think you could whip that up fairly quickly, and I don't think that's something that the designers needed to add in. So yeah, 5 out of 5 from me. Thank you. This has been DM Dongo. Please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And please do use my affiliate code, which will be down below if you're going to pick up Weekend at Strahd's. Peace out.